what am I doing? Why am I killing myself? And I was really, really stressed. Why am I killing myself doing something that I don't even know is having the impact that it could have? Like, what's the point?
Welcome to Another Door podcast. Another Door is a place that you come to when you're rethinking your work, whether it's job loss, a career change, or you just want to rethink how you are doing your work right now. Come and find us at anotherdoor.co.uk. On this episode, I have Ruth Kudzi. I have followed Ruth Kudzi's journey into entrepreneur world and her amazing coaching business for a while now. And last year, I took part in her coaching diploma as well. And it's amazing to see someone have an idea all those years ago and it grow and flourish. And it's really inspiring. But that's not why I wanted her on the podcast. I wanted her on the podcast to share Another Door moments, because I know she's had many Another Door moments in her life. And I thought it would be interesting for her to share a few, maybe more related to the business, but we do share a few personal moments as well. But sometimes we can look at people who are really successful and we think, wow, they're just making it look so easy. I think it's interesting to hear the other side of that actually they've had to make decisions, they've had to close doors, make conscious decisions to close doors for new ones to open. And I think that's really inspiring. She has a new book coming out, which is all about being well and looking after ourselves. And I think that that's a great message to go alongside this message of ownership, owning the doors closing and opening in your life. Enjoy. Ruth, welcome to Another Door podcast again. You're back.
Hey, thank you so much for having me back. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, you've had many doors, actually mostly opening, but we know what goes on behind the scenes. A lot of doors closing, but it feels like many doors opening for you since the last time we spoke. With another exciting one coming up with your new book coming out, which we will no doubt get into. So I'm excited, and I just wanted to basically talk to you about that new book and what's going on. But anyway, for those who don't know you, quick intro maybe.
Okay, so I'm Ruth Kudzi, and I'm an entrepreneur. So I run two businesses. I run my own coaching business, which I've run for 7 years now. And I also run a training business where we train people to become accredited coaches. So I guess I can finally call myself an entrepreneur. That felt quite uncomfortable for a long time. I'm also a podcaster, an author, a speaker, definitely one of those multi-hyphenates, although I probably wouldn't say that about myself, although I just did.
I love that bit. It's such a simple question, but how hard is it to answer? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. Where do you come from? It's like blind dates.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be so much easier just to say, oh, I'm Adrian. I'm an electrician from Rochdale.
Exactly.
Done.
I'm not from Rochdale either. I'm from London. And I'm not Adrian.
Or an electrician.
No, not an electrician, although that'd be quite useful.
Yeah. Interesting what you said about entrepreneur. I felt the same when I came into this world of self-employment 8 years ago now, 7, I don't even know when. But everybody was calling themselves an entrepreneur, and I'd been working for Richard Branson. I was like, I thought he was an entrepreneur. It's a word that you kind of like put heap for very, very, very successful, special people. And now suddenly everyone, and then people would introduce me as an entrepreneur. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to be sick in my hands. Like, no, I'm not that. I'm just an idiot that's just playing around. I have no idea what I'm doing. But yeah, we should embrace it.
Yeah. And I think it is, isn't it? It's about how we compare ourselves to others and what we make a word mean. And it's so weird because I used to be a business teacher. So we used to talk about entrepreneurs a lot and entrepreneurship and all of these things. And I studied management at uni as well. And honestly, I used to think an entrepreneur was like Richard Branson. It was definitely a man, and they were definitely white. And they used to create really unique things. And I think that was what stopped me being an entrepreneur for so long, because I was thinking, I don't know if I've got any really unique ideas. And yeah, I can't think about going to space. Like, that is just not in my realm. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I'll leave it to Richard and James Dyson.
Love that. Though there was Anita Roddick, I think.
Oh, yes, of course.
She was my, like, oh, I loved her. Just obsessed.
Yeah.
Very stalky.
And I don't know what kind of happened to the Body Shop, because it now seems to be like an MLM a little bit.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I guess it is. Well, it got bought, didn't it, by L'Oreal or something? It's owned by a bigger company. So maybe, when she passed, I think we sold it. Anyway, we're not going to solve that problem today. You're another door moment. So please share. I know there have been many doors closing, doors opening. What are you going to share with us today?
I'm going to share 2 doors, actually. So I'm going to share one door that I realized that was closing, and I kind of made the option to close it behind me and do something completely different. And that is nearly 8 years ago now, when I went back to school. Well, I went back to school. I was working as a deputy head teacher. I went back to work after my first daughter. And I realized that I could not be the mum that I wanted to be and be present and do my job. It was too much. I was an inner city deputy head. I had a lot of responsibilities. Actually, I was an assistant head at that point, not a deputy head. I love the fact that I always get like, I need to get the detail right. I was an assistant head at that point. And I was like, I really, really knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing and also be around for my kids. And that was really important to me. So I looked at how I could close that door and I could still enable myself to provide. So and this is really interesting because I think people make assumptions as well. So I earn a bit more than my husband, but we both needed to earn money and I needed to continue to earn that money. And I think that sometimes people assume that when you set up your own business, that it's being, especially when you're married, that you're being funded by somebody else. I mean, the crazy person that I am, I set up my own business whilst on maternity, well, just at the beginning of maternity, and got married the next year. That was crazy. But yeah, people assume like somebody else is funding it, and that just wasn't the case. Like, that wasn't my reality. But I realized I needed to shut that door, and I needed to shut that door on a career that I'd been in for about 12 years, I think. And I spent a lot of time, a lot of energy. I got a really good reputation, actually, in education. I'd done some great things, but I needed to shut that door. And I needed to actually shut that door behind me to enable me to go into something different. And I think that's the really interesting thing, that I could have kept one foot in that door and I could have done lots of things like that would keep me in education, but I actually completely shut the door, and I didn't give myself the option to keep it open. And that was for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was because I knew that it would be very difficult to stand by what I wanted to do if I hadn't completely closed that door. And second of all, I was quite tainted. Like, we had a young person who had gone to our school had been murdered, and that was a massive moment for me of going, I didn't feel like I could cope anymore, and I felt like a lot of things were kind of I was saying and were being discounted and that kind of thing. I just thought, I really, really need to make a break. So when I shut that door, I slammed that door behind me. Like, I literally was like, this is it.
That is huge. And I think it's really interesting that, because you say you can't just keep one foot open, especially when you're taking the decision. You know, obviously, as you know, I work a lot with people who lost their job or there's been an enforced change. But my interest, and this is what I'm loving on this Another Door story, is that's not always the case. Sometimes you take that decision to close the door, and I love it. You slammed it. You didn't even just gently shut it and maybe like keep the key. No, slam it. What was the moment? Do you remember the moment you decided it's got to be a break? It's got to be closed. That's it. I'm not going back to that. I'm fully turning around into a new space.
I think so. There were a couple of moments, and one of the moments was my daughter's first birthday. I've talked about this in my first book, actually. And on her first birthday, I had to be in school for a certain time every morning. She was asleep, and when I got home, she was asleep. And I remember the next day, she started nursery. I was much better with my first and my second. The next day, she started nursery, and I was like, I said to the business manager, I don't know why I asked him. I said, can I have the morning? Can I be an hour late for school to drop her off? No cover. And I used to do the cover. And he said no. And I could have gone further than that. I could have gone to the head teacher, or I could have just, to be honest, I could have just not come in for an hour. Wouldn't have made any difference. But I just thought, I'm not having somebody else dictate when I can and can't see my daughter. And actually, this is like this treatment, because I run the cover at that point, which I was useless at, but I still ran it. I knew that I would say yes to everybody else. And I just, and you know, when you're just like, why am I doing this? And so there was that moment. And then I think the next moment was, it was when I was on maternity leave with my second daughter. And I remember going to this networking event, and I remember talking to people, and I remember seeing the impact that even me speaking about, it was mindset stuff, it was positive psychology, it was all that stuff that I love talking about. It's in my second book as well, actually. When I was there, I could see that I was having more impact on people than I think I was having in my role as a deputy head. And I just thought, what am I doing? You know, why am I killing myself? And I was really, really stressed. Why am I killing myself doing something that I don't even know is having the impact that it could have? Like, what's the point? And so that was a massive learning. And I just thought, this is another sign that I need to really embrace this new door and this new direction.
And so did you have an idea of what you were going to do when you closed the door, or were you just in a full-on slam door, let's find out what happens next?
So I've been thinking about coaching since, I probably have been thinking about coaching since being about 20 and being in a management lecture at university when they were talking about a coaching leadership style. Like, I studied psychology and management at university. I then did a postgrad in psychology and education. Like, I worked in recruitment, and I remember working in recruitment, first of all, and there was another girl called Ruth, and Ruth did psychometrics. And I was always like, I want to do what Ruth does. She did psychometrics and coaching. I want to do what she does. I don't really want to do recruitment. But obviously I kept that in my head and didn't tell her. So I had known for a long time that I loved coaching and I loved training. And then that had got louder and louder. So I'd done lots of it at work. I was trained in it already. So I knew that I wanted to coach. The business that I created was not the business I ever thought I would create. So I knew, like, I've been doing leadership coaching, and I've been doing really well at that. And then I kind of created a business coaching, to begin with, coaching mums who'd lost their confidence, and doing career coaching, and it kind of evolved. And then I was doing like business mentor. Like, it really, really changed. I think for me, it was, I know that I've got this skill. And then when I was in it, it was like just learning and adapting the whole time and thinking about, okay, what's going to be most useful? So there was a lot of reflection, a lot of change, a lot of being open, which I don't know if I'd ever been that open around change in other elements of my life.
So you had the idea. Yeah. When I closed the door, you had the idea, but you hadn't started it.
No. I had the idea. I'd done lots of training. I'd actually done little bits, like I'd done a blog, and I think about, I had a Twitter account, I can't remember what it was called. It was like some kind of play on like, okay, this sounds really, really cringy, but some kind of play on being like a mum around town. That's what I'm going to say. It was something like that.
Mum around town. I like it.
Yeah, like it was, yeah. So that there was that.
Mum gets around.
Mum gets around. Yeah, it wasn't that cool. And I don't think many people, yeah, I can't even remember what it was called, but I'd done bits, but I was just really, really clueless. But I also was like, if I don't put my mind to it, if I don't at least test this, how will I ever know? And I think actually being in entrepreneurship, it's really hard. And like running your own business is really hard. And the buck stops with you. And there's so much stuff like over COVID, I realized that I took on so much, and I realized that I like being a leader compared to leading your own business. Oh my gosh, like you have to learn all over again. But I think that I realized that I was actually quite good at this, which massively helped me. Massively helped me.
So the moment you decided close the door on your profession and your career and do something new, the bit that intrigues me, because it comes up a lot, is the people around you. Like, how did they react? Because again, when you've been in a profession like, oh, you're a teacher, wow, that's a good status. People get it. They get what you do. They love that. And then you're going and telling the people around you, maybe your husband, maybe, whoever, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. What was it like? What was the reaction like? How did you kind of navigate through the people around you's reactions?
So what I would say is I didn't tell everyone.
You pretended you were still a teacher.
No,
have you told them now? Like 7 years later, this is the outcome.
Yeah, they're just finding out now. I told my husband. He was just kind of like, okay. I mean, my husband is quite. He's just like quite kind of like, okay, if you think that's a good idea, Ruth, then do it. Like he's not very. Yeah, he's always like, I'll support you, but he doesn't always express like, are you crazy? I think he thinks like, are you crazy a lot? But he's always really like outwardly supportive and lovely. On the inside, he's probably thinking, who the hell is this crazy lady? So I told him, I think I told my mum, she didn't really say much. And then I just told a select group of friends, but I didn't make much of it. And I didn't actually tell anyone at work. So what I did is I set up my business in my married name, even though I wasn't married, because my maiden name, I've always had weird surnames. So my maiden name had a really weird surname as well. So I set it up and I just thought, I'm just going to see if this can work. So I didn't really tell people. And then when it did work, I remember resigning and telling my boss and then telling people at work, and they were just amazingly supportive, because there is this thing in education that people always think, and people always say, oh, it's really hard to get out of education. It's really hard to get out of education. And so I think I actually helped inspire some people that they could. But yeah, I just didn't tell people. I knew that not that many people would get it. And if I'm thinking about my friends, like not that many of people in my friends, like my best friends, most of them do really normal things. Like they work, they work normal jobs. I think when people really got it was my first book launch, and I invited like loads of my friends, and that's when they were like, wow, like you're doing really well. But it is always interesting about who's around you, because I did find that I built relationships with people online, and I kind of built my own support network there as well, which has a different function to my friends.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely shifts, doesn't it? The people you have around you. And you just have different conversations with people. It's similar to when you have children, though. Like who you've got around you, your conversation shifts slightly, and there's different maybe groups.
Yeah.
Here, you just have different things in common.
Yes.
I find it fascinating, that piece about who's around you. Like my mother is still probably waiting for me to get a job. Like it's like 7 years later, and she's like, one day you might go back to a job, like a real job.
My mum does things, and like I don't really understand what you do. She didn't come to my first book launch. She definitely won't come to my second one. Like I don't feel like, yeah, I don't think my mum thinks that I mean, she definitely doesn't think that I'm anything special. And like, and let's be honest, in a way that's good because I don't think I'm anything special. I think that I work hard. I think I've found some things that I'm good at, but I'm not here to be like some kind of, which is probably quite lucky, some kind of demigod, you know, like I know that I have my limitations. I know that I've got a lot of learning. And I think that that's probably what makes me more relatable to people as well. But yeah, I mean, like my mum's probably like, when is she going to go back to teaching?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
I don't know what she's doing, mucking around. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah. When you stopped on that faff, can you do something?
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine her saying faff, and I can imagine her saying to her friends, well, I don't really know what Ruth does. But you know, that's fine. She's not going to ever buy from me. So, you know.
Yeah, I like that. Are you looking for somebody to help you rethink your work? Are you looking for somebody who has got something to say, something different? Perhaps you're creating an event, you've got a conference coming up, and you're looking for speakers or workshops that really get people rethinking. Check out our platform with fresh new voices and people who've got something to say. Come and see us at recommended.anotherdoor.co.uk. It's a real thing. It's definitely a real thing in changing your life. People have to change with you, but then actually some people don't. You could still have them for different reasons. You say you still meet up with your original group of friends. You still chat with whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
we're talking about when you last saw them.
My friends now are my friends that have been my friends for most of them decades. You know, of course you get new friends. You get new friends through things like, you know, the school gates and stuff like that. And you get new friends through work as well. And like there's new people that I've met. But my friends are pretty much the same people that have been my friends for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
I mean, no one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We could go bird watching. We could all do that.
Yeah, we could go twitching.
Interesting what you said. I like the thing as well about just giving stuff a go in the simplest way. So you used your to be married name. Love that. And this is now just a penny has dropped because I found you on a Facebook ad. I think you were advertising your coaching. So I remember how I come across you and what in your Facebook group and what you're doing. This was like 8 years ago or something. And it was really weird because you posted about getting married, but then you were married, like you'd already been using your name. And I remember saying to someone, I don't know if she's making it up because that's already her name. Like, did people go on? Because I didn't know you, like I was just following you. And I was like, but she's posted that she's just got married, but she's been this name. Like, this is the name. And now she's married. It's really weird. And they were like
a weirdo.
Yeah. And then
I am a weirdo.
They said, oh, no, well, maybe it's like, you know, I haven't changed my name. So being married, maybe, you know, she just hasn't changed her name. No, because she said her husband. And they were like, ooh. And I remember having this chat. It's so funny, like the things you're like, ooh. But anyway, you start following you and then you get what's going on.
Yeah,
so it was funny.
It was just because people would find me as a teacher. And basically, I remember like some kids finding me anyway. And then when you answering the phone, them going, I want to be coached. And you're like, okay, brilliant. But yeah, I wanted that separation. But of course, people would find you. But it did give me a bit of fear, you know, because then you're coming up to the wedding and you're like, sugar, what if, I know it's a podcast, so I bet that's fine. What if he calls the wedding off? And everything is under this name. Like, how embarrassing. And how am I going to be like all of these things? So I definitely had that fear. Now, I don't know if you usually have a fear about someone calling the wedding off. I don't know if that's normal. And my fear was amplified because I was like, and I'm calling, like, you know, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a fraud and telling myself all of this. Yeah. It was very interesting because actually my business, everything went up after we got married.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't know if that was because I was stepping more into it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess the lesson there is that sometimes it's really hard to be visible. Like it
Yeah.
is hard to be visible. And we're told like, be visible, be visible. But sometimes it's really hard. And sometimes there are circumstances like, you know, with my job, if I'd used my actual name, it could have caused like a lot of issues for me. So yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't make up getting married and my wedding dress as well. Like, it was a whole saga of my wedding.
It was a saga of the wedding dress. That's what I was like. I've joined this coaching thing to help me set up my business, and she's just going on about a lost wedding dress. It's very traumatic. I don't know what
It was very traumatic. It was very traumatic. They did actually lose my wedding dress.
Yeah.
And the company that the shop where I bought my wedding dress actually went into receivership. And I think the only reason I got my wedding dress was because I actually had a social media following, and I said, you know, if you don't put anything, if I don't get my dress, which I've paid for, by the way, top tip, if anyone's getting married, you do not pay for your wedding dress in full before. I didn't know that, obviously, because you only get married once, don't you? So what they've done is they've taken everybody's money for the wedding dresses, but they hadn't always given the money to the designer. Anyway, they hadn't even given the money to the designer when the designer had produced the wedding dresses. So our designer was holding back the wedding dress because she said, I'm owed so much money. And it got into like a massive, like, honestly, the designer, the guy who ran the business, they're all like calling me for kind of like coaching straight mediation. I'm like, I really don't care. I just want my dress.
Right. So we're in the messy bit, and now you're up and running. And as you said, you know, the coaching business, well, you've had several kind of moments of change and when you've decided to change and move. So what you said, there was another door that closed.
Yeah. So coaching business running, doing really well, loving it. And then about 4 years ago, I decided that, okay, so I've got all of this, you know, my kids are getting bigger. They're like 3 and 5 or something ridiculous. Why don't I do something else? So lots of people have said to me, like, why don't you run a training business? Why don't you train people to become coaches? And I'd done a little bit of it on one of my programs. People were like, oh, this is brilliant. So I decided that I was going to do it. So I obviously like had to go down, like, you know, getting all my paperwork in order, and did that. And, you know, year one coincided with COVID, brilliant. And then year two, and then some amazing people joined. And then year two, we grew. So our business 8 times in revenue from year one to year two. So all of those things that people go on about, having a 7-figure business. Yeah. You know, nothing, you know, I wasn't paying myself 7 figures. It was so much growth, but it was also like, you know, suddenly I had to up level everything. Suddenly, you know, I was doing all of the stuff that I've been doing myself. I outsourced. I got so many things wrong. And what I had to do actually is I had to close the door on my coaching business for a bit to get my training business in order. And that was really, really hard. But I had to go, okay, I am only one person. And, you know, I have like done a lot of learning. 8 times in revenue is the kind of thing that people put in ads.
Yeah.
8 times in revenue. Amazing. Make 7 figures. Yeah, it was amazing. But it was also really, really, really hard because I'd never done that before. And I probably didn't have the right support. I definitely didn't have the right team. I didn't understand, you know, I didn't understand so much. So that made me have to close the door on my coaching business, but that was only a temporary close. And, you know, it was a very, very interesting time because I also had to close the door. I also did close the door, and this is interesting, on getting external support for the business stuff. And this is quite interesting because I realized that a lot of the reasons it had been so hard is because I've been listening to too many people. And some people have said, like, you need to take yourself out of the business. You shouldn't be doing so much training. You need to be doing this. And other people have been saying X and Y and Z. And I was so overwhelmed that I was really struggling to make decisions. So I just got myself a personal coach, got myself some therapy, focused on myself. And then actually, I haven't had proper business support really since then. And the business has not only turned itself around, or I suppose that was probably up to me, turned itself around, it's also doing better than ever. The team are better than ever. Our profitability is really, really high. We're growing in terms of like all of these measures. And that was because I had to shut a couple of doors. I had to shut a door on my own coaching business. And that was short term. But I had to do that because if I didn't do that, I was not going to give myself capacity to do all of the work on myself and actually have space to really understand what I wanted. And I had to close the door on listening to other people.
I like that ownership of having to close something to create space, but not necessarily for something new, but just thinking time, just your own literal silent space of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people could take that in so many different ways. Like they may be in work at the moment, but, you know, intentionally close something. And that power of not listening to people, because even experts have conflicting opinions. It just could overwhelm you already. So it has to be all filtered through your lens of what you're doing. Otherwise, it's completely useless. So what is the new book about? Where did that come from?
So the new book is called How to Feel Better. And it's really about self-coaching. So I think, or personally for me, the most powerful thing that I have ever done is around coaching myself. That personal development piece is the thing that I think is most useful. So for me, this is the book, like you go to the gym to work out your body, or you exercise physically to work out your body. This is about working out your mind. This is about really looking at that inside out, how you think, how you feel, and understanding yourself so you can change.
I love that. So somebody's going to read it and you're going to take them through that, how to do it. Is that what it is?
Someone's going to read it. We're going to take you through a 4-step process and support you to actually change how you think and feel and how you show up. And it's something that you can keep using. So I think that if everyone knew how to self-coach, it would help you through a lot of problems. Doesn't mean that you're not going to experience problems, but it would definitely help you through a lot of those problems.
Yeah. And does it share your personal experience, or is it purely a self-help thing?
Loads of personal experience. So there's lots and lots of things that we share. There's lots of models, examples, tools, techniques. So it really is about supporting you to make a long-term change and helping you to live a life where you feel better.
Like that. Ooh, exciting. Well, I am loving this new door that you're about to open, which is all about that, keynote speaker on the international stage, talking about this stuff and author, loving that. So thank you so much for sharing your doors. I think there's loads to take from there. Before you go and before we say goodbye, I've got 3 questions that I ask everybody.
Yeah.
Always when we're going through times of change and things, I always think there's always a book that's helped us. Or these days it could be podcast or something.
Yeah. What's
your book, podcast that's kind of helped you through your door, closing the messy but in between stage?
I think that it was that book, Mindset by Carol Dweck. I think it was that made a massive difference. Now, I first heard about that when I was doing my teacher training. And I've actually seen Carol speak as well. I think she's amazing. But that idea that I can always improve just sticks with me. Like, okay, this is not the end point. And that really, 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 really helps me.
That's important as well. It's such a big point. There's never an end. This is continuously work in progress, isn't it? So, big point. Love that book. And also, I think there's always sound around us, like music of some sort or something that our soundtrack that accompanies change. What was that for you?
Oh my gosh. So this is so weird. So this soundtrack that I think really company changed, and they're not as good since, but it was Disclosure's first album. And interestingly, like that kind of summer, so this is 10 years ago, this summer, that summer was like a massive period of change for me as well. So yeah, that Disclosure first album.
Yeah, I love
Not
that.
quite as good as they were before, but that always takes me back to that moment and that feeling bold and that kind of doing it. So if I want some mojo stuff, I do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you still play that now to give you a bit of an uplift? Yeah.
I'm really disappointed because we went to see them in the summer and they don't play it anymore. They play new stuff that I don't like. So
yeah, I was going to say they're a bit more experimental and they do collaborations and things now.
Not my vibe anymore. Yeah.
They've moved on. You've moved on. It's all fine. We're on a good new running space. Cool. I like that. And so, final question. Someone's listening today. They've resonated with what you was talking about. What's your one piece of advice when someone is facing a door closing?
To always be open to the possibilities that it will bring. Yeah. So rather than mourn the door closed, be open to the possibilities the new door will bring. Love that.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Where can people find you? Where's the best place for people? They can find you everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. But where's
here, there, and everywhere? So I'm the only Ruth Kudzi. So it's Kudzi. Find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you looking for somebody to help you rethink your work? Are you looking for somebody who has got something to say, something different? Perhaps you're creating an event, you've got a conference coming up, and you're looking for speakers or workshops that really get people rethinking. Check out our platform with fresh new voices and people who've got something to say. Come and see us at recommended.anotherdoor.co.uk. Love this podcast? Give us a 5-star review or rate us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.